I'm gonna pause the music for now because I want to cover my dueling coasters. So I was working, just for fun, to make my very own sort of dueling coaster. And I did, successfully. I named them Fire and Ice. And the whole concept is for one to invert and the other to just be a, normal strata adjacent coaster. And so I got the timing correct. I made the coaster. It looks pretty cool overall. It's got some really tight turns though. Guests typically don't like to go on this one because its lateral G's are a little high, which is respectable. I probably wouldn't either, to be honest. It's super fast, kind of intense. But time it so that everything kind of works well together. And full disclosure, I made this coaster set like probably about a month ago. So I've actually come quite a long way in coaster design since then, and I'm still nowhere near comfortable with my abilities, but at least I understand it now. This is one of my favorite parts. Obviously, not realistic. You could high-five the people right below you if you wanted. But I did have quite a bit of fun with this. And it is to this day one of my favorite, coasters that I have made. Even if I'm not super happy with the end result, I know at least it's like conceptually very cool. And so, I may have gone a little bit overboard. This is what it ended up as. I started skinning it and I couldn't work on anything else until I was done with it. I've never felt this way about any project before until this one came around. And so here it is. We're going to take a little tour and we're going to see what's going on the inside. I've always loved Subnautica. Subnautica is one of my favorite games. And I don't think I'll ever go back to play it because I don't think I can recreate the magic of not knowing what the game is like. I am going to set the time to 7 so that the lights kind of have a better effect, but I've got a couple of options here. You can either dive or you can hunt. Now, these are the two types of attractions that you can sort of get on your way. The hunt version is the looping version of the coaster. And then the dive is the strata sort of submarine type. Let's go down the dive section first. Of course, I have some natural submarine related stuff on the outside. Considering this is one of my first submissions to the workshop that I put a lot of effort into, it still could use quite a bit of work. But I think conceptually it's really fun. I love these aquatic sort of tunnels. They're one of my favorite things to use, and I finally found a good excuse to use them. It makes it feel like this whole thing is an actual water tank that you're coming through. And here's the station for the first coaster. We'll get a closer look at the cars. Obviously, some of the submarine lighting. This is in the base game. So this was before Update 8, where they shrunk down all of the animated pieces. And so, even with the way that these look, they don't clip with anything. They're just the right size for the coaster, regardless of scalability, which is something I was very excited about at the time. Although, now it matters a little bit less. Would have been significantly more impressive had I made these coasters in like Update 5 or something. However, I would like to go over here to the hunt section, because these are supposed to mimic some of the underwater caves that you can explore in Subnautica itself. And bear in mind, these are sort of Subnautica adjacent themed. They're not specific, although I do have some props for the ride from a specific user on the workshop. I think it may have been Bughole. I don't remember. Regardless, they were pretty cool. I ended up modifying a couple of them. And using some of the sorcery crystals, it's the perfect vibe for going on a coaster like this one. Each of the cars, or the trains I mean, are different. So one of them is themed after a ghost Leviathan, the other is the Reaper. Which looks a little goofy on the face, but we don't talk about that part. It was my first time really getting into coaster, creation like this. And it was before I even learned that there was a symmetry tool. So, that was a little bit of pain. Let's ride the Strata first, and then we'll do the looping coaster. First of the two types of coasters. And if I get off here, it'll put me out at the exit. And now we'll do the on-ride experience for the other one, although I would like to know, would you like to ride the Ghost Leviathan or the Reaper Leviathan? Because I have two different types of coasters, which I'm actually quite interested in because one of them doesn't glow nearly as much. Yeah, obviously there's a little bit of flipping here, but that's fine. Amazing interactions here, dude. Thank you. Thank you. Again, I designed all of this before I put together the theming. So, the concept is, of course, the coaster making the more dangerous movements is going to be the one that's sort of the Leviathan or the Predator. Let's go inside here and see what's up. What's going on? Also, doesn't this just show from the surface? Yes, it does. It's really cool. This is my favorite part of the ride, I think. It's the only part that comes above the tank. But I made some water splashies and it happened to work out just perfectly so that there would be no head clipping here. Although, realistically, if you're gonna put your arms in the air, you might expect to get them cut off. So, you know, at your own discretion, etc., etc. I have some of my best screenshots in this tank. I'm gonna keep my flashlight on so I can see what I'm talking about here. I did steal some of the props. It is Bug Hill. Huge shout out to this creator. It was not directly inspired by this. I wanted to do a Subnautica adjacent or themed coaster like this though. And so I did. These are them. I even used some of the little ore props and put them around. Not that you'd ever see them on the coaster, but This whole thing is set dressing for these dueling coasters. Of course, these are water shapes up at the top, so that sometimes the reflections can come through. It does cause some lighting issues sometimes, depending on the time of day. But it's not super broken, to be honest. First experience that I ever had with trigger sequences was right here. I had so much fun with this one. Opening up as everything lights up, and then the coaster rushes forth. I want to do more and more stuff like that. These creep vines, as they're called in game, are not actually creep vines per se. However, once we finally got armillaries, I got these to glow. The original ones had spheres attached to them, which was okay, but they didn't have any lighting besides, so I had to make my own. That took a little bit of time, but ultimately it's just a bunch of elephant ear plants attached to one single, like, invisible stem, essentially. We've also got some peepers from that same general pack that Bughole put together. Some bloodwalkers. I've also got a life pod down here. Again, most of these were done by either one or multiple other creators, but it's the ensemble of all of them that makes them look this good. Putting together some of these coral trees, all it takes is putting trees upside down. They're a little jarring if you look at them for their wood texture, but because you're not really looking at their wood texture, you're just leaving it lit like this, they look pretty alright. This coral is so versatile. It's my favorite. It's probably my favorite piece from that pack, the aquatic themed items. You could recolor them. They glow regardless. They even pulsate if you pay attention for long enough, which is quite interesting. We've got some Easter eggs around, like these little guys, and there's also a bone shark on the way up. Can't really see him, but he is there. I love the use of aquatic rocks for his back. I don't have any actual Leviathans in here. That would be the coaster. And then the name of this ride comes from a real life submarine, which, you know, I didn't really want to take after Subnautica one for one. So what I've done here is basically come up with my own lore for the coaster and the ride itself, which I think is okay to do from time to time. It's not strictly like on the money for the source material, but I still think that having your own creative flair to stuff like this is what makes creativity in these types of games so interesting. I had so many close calls when I was building this thing too. If you're paying close attention, got a lot of instances like right next to these areas, which were really, really tough to get to work. In particular, the biggest challenge for me was this loop, which I didn't even bother to custom support. I just left it as is. I'm like, it's underwater. It's fine. It's fine. Again, I wouldn't have like settled for less here. But the reason that the station for the Reaper Leviathan is so small or so tight at the bottom here, and guests won't bump their head here, they're just barely tall enough for this, is because this loop gets so far down low. And so I had to use pieces which would acceptably make it so that nothing would be clipping here. Some of these valleys and close calls, like, obviously this is like one of the least realistic rides you could expect in Planet Coaster. It's got water on the ceiling, it's got close calls where you could basically hold hands at some point with some of the guests on the other ride. It's pretty close. Yeah, you could wave at them at least. But I could see elements of this that, if they were realistic, would be really, really fun. So I want to do a more realistic ride like this in the future, which will kind of lean into that direction a little more. That's the thing. The outside is themed to the architects in game. If you don't know what that is, I won't say anything more. Very cool conceptually. All right, that's it. And now I can go do my other stuff, which is exciting. The Frontier Workshop being janky? Who would have thought it? I know, crazy.